The birthday that changed everything. When I turned 65, I threw a party for my family. No one came. That same evening, while candles melted down on untouched plates and the roast grew cold in the oven, my daughter-in-law posted pictures of everyone smiling on a cruise ship. I just stared. Then I smiled, quiet, steady. When they returned, I handed her a single envelope. Inside was a DNA test. Her face turned pale. But let me start at the beginning. I spent 3 weeks planning my birthday. Not because I expected grandeur, but because I loved them. I wanted to gather everyone around one table, warm food, good wine, laughter echoing through the house. I chose the menu carefully, decorated the dining room with fresh white lilies, and wore a navy blue dress Elliot once said made me look elegant. I set the table for 8. Placed cards in my best cursive. Elliot, Meadow, Tommy and Emma, my sister Ruth and her husband Carl, and me, at the head of the table, where I could see every face I'd loved for a lifetime. By 6:30, no one had arrived. I checked my phone 3 times. The calendar reminder glared back, birthday dinner, 6 p.m. I had sent a reminder to everyone just 2 days earlier. At 7 o'clock, I called Elliot. Straight to voicemail. Then Meadow. Nothing. Ruth, my sister, my confidant, didn't answer either. That was strange. She always picked up on the second ring. By 8 o'clock, the truth settled around me like a winter fog. They weren't coming. I sat at the table. The candles now nothing more than stubs. The roast I'd basted so carefully still in the oven. The chocolate cake I baked from scratch that morning sat perfect and untouched on the counter. The house was silent, but not peaceful. Hollow, like it knew I'd been left behind. A foolish part of me still hoped. Maybe an emergency. Maybe traffic. Then I made the mistake of opening Facebook. There, at the top of my feed, was a photo that changed everything. Meadow, radiant in a white sundress, her arm looped around Elliot. Behind them, the endless blue of the Mediterranean Sea. The caption read, "Living our best life. Grateful for this beautiful family vacation." I stared, breathless. More pictures followed. Tommy and Emma playing in the sand. Ruth and Carl clinking glasses in a ship's bar. Laughter frozen in perfect frames. Every single one of them smiling. Every single one of them on that ship. Except me. The photos had been posted just an hour before, while I was lighting candles, straightening napkins, waiting. It wasn't an accident. It was a plan. They had left me out on purpose. Booked the trip to fall on my birthday. Lied. Even Ruth, who helped pick out the flower arrangements just a week before, had known. I stared at those photos until my eyes burned. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Elliot. "Sorry, Mom. Forgot to mention we're out of town." Meadow surprised us with a last-minute trip. "Happy birthday. Forgot to mention." As if a Mediterranean cruise was something you casually forget to tell your mother about. As if the timing was just coincidence. I put my phone down before I threw it. The roast was cold. The cake uncut. I turned off the oven. Blew out the remaining candles. Loaded the plates back into the cabinet, each clink echoing like a hollow bell through the house. Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like ice on a pond just before it gives way. I caught my reflection in the darkened window. The woman staring back looked older. Smaller. Not just alone, but erased. A peacekeeper, forgotten. A mother, excluded. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the last 5 years. All the subtle slights I'd brushed off. The accidental miscommunications. The missed invitations. And suddenly, it all made sense. Tommy's 4th birthday. When I arrived and Meadow smiled and said, "Oh, didn't Elliot tell you?" We moved the party to tomorrow. But I could hear children laughing behind her. I saw the balloons. Later, Elliot said, "What?" "No, Mom. The party was today. Emma's first day of kindergarten." I'd asked Meadow 3 times what time they were dropping her off so I could take pictures. She told me super early. But the school's photos were posted online at 10 a.m. Slowly, I realized what Meadow had been doing. She wasn't just forgetting me. She was removing me. One careful cut at a time. I think the others followed because it was easier. Easier to go along. To let her take control. To believe her smile and her stories, and not question what they were losing in the process. But I noticed. And on my 65th birthday, when they made it clear just how far I'd been pushed out, I decided something. I wouldn't fight to be included anymore. I would stand back and let their world tilt. Just a little. You see, I wasn't just a grandmother. Or a sister. Or a mother who baked cakes and remembered birthdays. I had time now. And information. And a quiet, steady way of doing things. So when they came back from their trip sun-kissed and smug, I greeted them warmly. Hugged the children. Complimented Meadow's tan. Then I handed her the envelope. Just something I thought you should see, I said. She opened it. One glance, and all the color drained from her face. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It doesn't come screaming or smashing plates. Sometimes it walks in gently, with a calm voice, and a folded piece of paper. And it changes everything. Probably too early for you, Meadow had said with a breezy laugh when I asked about Emma's first day of kindergarten. We'll drop her off at 7. Still, I showed up. Just in case. The teacher greeted me kindly at 8:45 and told me Emma had arrived at the usual time, 8:30. I missed her little hand waving nervously goodbye. I missed her first steps into the big school world. Not by accident. By design. Last Christmas, Meadow called me 2 days before, her voice dripping with manufactured sympathy. Loretta, I hate to do this, she began. But Elliot's feeling so overwhelmed. We're keeping Christmas small this year. Just the 4 of us. So I stayed home. Alone. Reheating leftovers, watching black and white movies with no laughter but my own. Later, Ruth called, almost sheepishly. I saw the photos, she whispered. They threw a big party, 20 people. Elliot's friends, neighbors. The whole house was lit up. Everyone but me. Each memory came back like a thread tugging loose the hem of my sanity, small, sharp betrayals I'd explained away. But now, they formed a pattern. One that had a name, Meadow. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was a quiet campaign. I stood in the kitchen at sunrise, holding a cup of coffee I didn't remember making, hands trembling from something deeper than exhaustion, something like clarity. I picked up my phone and scrolled through Meadow's public posts for the first time with unclouded eyes. There she was, front row at Tommy's school play. The one she said was canceled due to a flu outbreak. There she was at Emma's recital. The one she brushed off as just a practice session, nothing special. Photo after photo of my family, without me. Tagged with captions like, so blessed and my perfect tribe. Smiling. Joyful. Complete. Complete without me. I walked to the garden. The same garden where Elliot used to help me dig holes for marigolds, his little hands clutching dirt with glee. The garden where I taught him patience, taught him that growth takes time. When did he stop seeing me? The answer came like a cold slap of wind when Meadow arrived. Before her, he called me twice a week. We had dinner every other Sunday. He'd ask my advice about work, laugh about his coworkers, even cry sometimes when things were hard. And then slowly, too slowly to notice, the calls dried up. The dinners disappeared. Meadow's been planning these special meals, he said once. She loves the 2 of us having weekends together. And just like that, I became someone he called out of duty, not love. Sorry, Mom. We're running late. Meadow's got the whole day scheduled tight. Meadow never said anything cruel. No, she was smarter than that. She whispered it between the lines. Your mom seems tired lately. Maybe she shouldn't watch the kids so much. She looked confused at the store yesterday. Do you think she's okay alone? She planted doubts like seeds. Watered them with silence. And watched them grow into distance. Even her hugs were condescending, too long, too soft. Like I was a porcelain doll to be pitted, not a woman who had raised her husband from nothing. She interrupted when I spoke to the children. Redirected their attention like I wasn't even there. Grandma Loretta's had a long day, sweeties. Why don't you go show Daddy your new toy? And Elliot, my beautiful, trusting son, followed her like a moth to flame. He began to look at me the way she did. Not like a mother. Not even like a person. But like a relic. Something fragile. Something fading. Then the phone rang. Elliot's name glowed on the screen. I stared at it, feeling the weight of everything left unsaid. "Hi, Mom," he chirped. "Just wanted to call and say happy belated birthday. Sorry we missed it, but this trip has been incredible. Meadow really outdid herself." I clenched the phone. My voice was too calm. "Yes." I saw the photos. "Oh, good," he said brightly. "Meadow's been posting like crazy. The kids are having a blast. You would have loved it. Tommy learned to snorkel and Emma made a new friend from Boston." Would have. The word stung. Past tense. A life I could only witness from the outside. "The trip was very last minute," I said quietly. "I know, right?" he chuckled. "Meadow just found this amazing deal and went for it. She's so spontaneous. That's one of the things I love about her. Spontaneous. That's what he called booking a cruise to avoid his mother's 65th birthday. I opened my mouth to speak. But what could I say? That his wife was erasing me with surgical precision? That he'd been blind while she rewrote our family story without me in it? He'd think I was bitter. Paranoid. Maybe I was. But I was also right. "Everything okay, Mom? You sound off." I paused. Years of lost memories weighed on my shoulders. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired." "Well, rest up. We'll be back next week, and I promise. We'll plan something special, just you and us." Another promise. Another plan Meadow would sabotage with a smile. After I hung up, I sat in silence, watching the light shift across the walls. And for the first time since my husband died 8 years ago, I felt truly orphaned. Not by death. By betrayal. By the slow, deliberate unraveling of my place in the only family I had left. But as grief bloomed into something hotter, sharper, I knew one thing. I would not fade quietly. If Meadow wanted to erase me, she chose the wrong woman. I had raised Elliot when his father left us. I'd worked 2 jobs to keep him fed, sold my grandmother's ring to pay for his textbooks, gone without so he could have more. I knew how to fight in silence. Meadow was clever, but I was patient. I didn't need to scream or accuse. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed one moment, one truth. And I already had it. Because inside that envelope, the one she hadn't dared to open in front of Elliot, was a DNA test. And the results weren't mine. They were Tommy's. And they didn't match. I'd earned my place in this family. I had poured my life into raising Elliot, sacrificed so much to ensure he had every opportunity. I was not going to surrender my place without a fight. But I needed to know exactly what I was fighting against. It was Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week since my abandoned birthday party, and I was still in my robe, clutching my second cup of coffee. In front of me sat a stack of thank you cards I'd bought for a celebration that never happened. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Visitors had become rare in my carefully maintained isolation. Still, the sound jolted me. Through the peephole stood a man I didn't recognize, mid-40s, dark hair, deep lines etched across a face that looked both determined and exhausted. He was well-dressed but disheveled, like someone who had been on the road too long. Something about him made me hesitate, then open the door carefully, with the chain still latched. "Can I help you?" I asked. He shifted his weight uncomfortably. "Mrs. Patterson? Loretta Patterson? Elliot's mother." My chest tightened. How did this stranger know my son's name? "Who's asking?" I said. He took a breath, steadying himself. "My name is David Chin. I need to talk to you about Meadow." Just hearing her name from a stranger's lips made my skin prickle. "What about Meadow?" His face changed. Nervous up close. Paler. Trembling slightly, eyes ringed with shadows. This man hadn't slept. "I know how this is going to sound," he said, "but I think my son might be living in your son's house." The chain in my hand suddenly felt heavier. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice low and flat. "Tommy," he said softly. 7 years old. Brown hair. Scar on his chin from a bike accident when he was 4. My breath hitched. Tommy did have a scar. Elliot told me about the fall, the frantic trip to the ER. But how would this man know that? "You'd better come in," I said. David sat on the edge of the couch like a man ready to flee at any second. I offered him coffee, he declined. His hands knotted in his lap so tightly his knuckles turned white. I don't know where to start, he said. Try me, I replied. I've had a very strange week. He exhaled shakily. Meadow and I were together for 2 years. Before she met your son. We lived together, talked about marriage. We were building a life. I set my coffee cup down. It suddenly felt too heavy to hold. Then she got pregnant, he said, his voice thick with pain. I was thrilled. Ready to propose. She said she needed time to think. And then, she disappeared. One day I came home and she was gone. Everything gone. No note. No forwarding address. Like she'd never been there at all. Did you try to find her? Of course, he said. I filed a missing person report. Hired an investigator. Posted everywhere online. But eventually, even the PI told me, some people don't want to be found. A silence fell between us. What does this have to do with Tommy? I asked, even though I already knew. 3 months ago, he said, I was in Sacramento for a conference. Walking downtown during lunch, and I saw them. Meadow and a boy. A boy who looked exactly like me at that age. Same dark eyes. Same chin. Same way of tilting his head when he's thinking. He stared into his hands. I followed them. Just for 3 blocks. Watching. That little boy, Mrs. Patterson, I knew he was mine. My blood felt cold in my veins. You're saying, you think Tommy is your son? I'm saying I think he might be. Meadow was about 2 months pregnant when she vanished. If she carried to term, that boy would be Tommy's age now. He pulled out his phone and handed it to me. A photo of a young boy stared back David as a child. 6, maybe 7. And the resemblance to Tommy was undeniable. The same eyes. Same stubborn little chin. Even the same small gap between his front teeth. Coincidence, I told myself. But I didn't believe it. I told myself it was just in my head, David said. But I couldn't let it go. So I hired another investigator. A better one. He leaned forward. Her real name isn't Meadow Martinez. It's Margaret Winters. And she's done this before. Done what before? Disappeared. Changed names. Left men when things got complicated. The investigator found 2 other men. Same pattern. Relationships, pregnancies, then poof. Gone. My stomach turned. One of those men, David continued, believes she was pregnant when she vanished too. I sat there, dizzy, as the world I knew unraveled at my feet. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why no? David's voice cracked. Because I've been watching. For 3 months. Trying to decide what to do. Whether I had a right to disrupt a child's life based on instinct. But then, he swallowed. I saw the cruise photos. The room felt like it tilted. That perfect vacation. Everyone smiling, laughing. And something hit me. You weren't in a single photo. Not one. I said nothing. I couldn't. I searched her entire feed, Mrs. Patterson. Hundreds of pictures. Birthdays. Holidays. Family events. Tommy and Emma in all of them. Your son in most. But you. He looked me in the eye. You were being erased. The words pierced me. Not because they were new, but because they confirmed what I'd tried for so long to deny. All those missed events. All those little excuses. All those moments where I stood on the outside of a window looking in on a life that used to include me. She did the same thing to me, David said. Cut me off. Made me feel like I was too much. Too needy. She isolated me until I had no one. Now I could hardly breathe. Mrs. Patterson, David said gently, I think you know what I'm saying is true. I nodded slowly. The room had gone quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the mantel. I had spent the last few years doubting myself, convincing myself I was being oversensitive. Now I saw what had been done to me was not just cruel, it was calculated. And Tommy, sweet, precious Tommy, might not be Elliot's son at all. I always thought I was the problem, David said quietly. That I was too demanding, too clingy, that maybe I cared too much. He shook his head, voice steady but aching. She convinced me the people who loved me didn't understand her like I did. That everyone else was toxic, controlling, wrong. She twisted everything until I believed I was lucky just to be with her. He looked up at me. She's doing the same thing to Elliot. I swallowed hard. I think so too, I whispered. And if Tommy really is your son, then he's not the only victim here. You are too. David nodded solemnly, then reached into his coat pocket again and pulled out a worn manila envelope. This is why I'm here, Mrs. Patterson. Why I finally worked up the courage to knock on your door. What is it? I asked, even though I already knew. DNA test results, he said, placing the envelope carefully on the table between us. I managed to get a sample of Tommy's hair from the barber shop. Had it tested against my own. His hands trembled. I got the results yesterday. I stared at the envelope like it might burn my fingertips. Inside was the truth that could destroy my family or save it. I didn't know which yet. Before you open it, David said softly, you need to know, I'm not here to take Tommy away. I'm not trying to uproot his life. I can't let Meadow keep lying to him. Or to Elliot. Or to you. He looked me in the eyes. I want to make sure that little boy is protected. From her. From whatever game she's playing. Because if she lied about this. His voice cracked. What else has she lied about? And who else is she going to hurt next? I didn't answer. I just stared down at the envelope, feeling its weight in my hands. The world outside carried on like nothing had changed, cars driving by, children laughing on the sidewalk. The sun was out. The air was warm. A perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon in a perfectly normal neighborhood. But my life, my family, had not been normal for a long time. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Mrs. Patterson, David said gently. Are you ready? I thought of Tommy's sweet smile. The way he used to run into my arms before Meadow gently pulled him back. I thought of Emma, who barely looked at me now. I thought of Elliot, my son, slowly drifting away on a tide I couldn't control. I thought of my silent birthday table, of candles that melted down to stumps while no one showed up. Yes, I said, and opened the envelope. The DNA results were clinical, cold in their finality. Probability of paternity, 99.7%. I read the words again and again, hoping they'd change, praying for a mistake. They didn't. Tommy wasn't Elliot's son. The little boy I'd held in my arms. The one I taught to tie his shoes. The one I read bedtime stories to. The one who once called me his favorite person in the world. He wasn't mine. And Elliot, my loving, gentle son, had no idea he'd been raising another man's child. I'm sorry, David whispered. He was still sitting on the edge of the couch, watching me carefully. I know this must be devastating. I set the papers down, my hands trembling too much to hold them any longer. How long have you known? I asked. Since yesterday, he said. But I've suspected for months. He pulled out his phone and showed me more photos, clearly taken from a distance. Tommy playing at the park. Walking to school. Riding his bike past my house. You've been watching my family, I said. I've been watching my son, David corrected, not angrily, just firmly. Trying to understand what kind of woman could steal a child and build an entire life around that lie. That's when the anger came. Not at David, he was as much a victim as I was. But at Meadow. At Margaret. At the scale of her deception. She hadn't just lied about a child, she'd constructed a reality from the lie. Used that child to ensnare Elliot, to create a false sense of family. And worst of all, she used that illusion to push me further and further to the margins. She trapped Elliot, I said, the words burning my throat. She got pregnant with someone else's child and used it to secure a marriage. David nodded grimly. The timeline fits. She left me at 2 months pregnant. Just starting to show. She could have easily convinced someone the baby was early. I remembered that day, Tommy's birth. How Elliot called in a panic, saying Meadow had gone into labor 3 weeks early. The doctor said everything was fine. Tommy was just small. But now I saw the truth. Tommy wasn't early. He was right on time for David's timeline, not Elliot's. It was all so clear now. Meadow's whirlwind romance with Elliot. The fast engagement. The rushed wedding barely 6 months after they met. Back then, I thought it was romantic. Now I saw it for what it really was, calculated. She needed a father before the baby was born, I said. Someone stable, David added. Someone who wouldn't question the math. Someone trusting. That was Elliot, I whispered. Always honest. Always kind. He never expected lies, so he never saw them coming. Exactly. My heart broke a little deeper. He loved her so quickly, I said. He wanted to believe in something good again after his father left. And she gave him that story. She gave him Tommy. David's voice dropped. There's more. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. The investigator found things about Meadow. About her past. Things that might explain why she's been pushing you out of the picture. What kind of things? He opened a folder and passed it to me. Inside were photographs, copies of ID documents, and what looked like old public records. Her real name is Margaret Winters, he said. She's 34. Not 31 like she told Elliot. She grew up in foster care. Aged out at 18. No family. No roots. Nothing to tie her to any place for long. I looked at an old yearbook photo. It was unmistakably her, but different. Sharper. Harder. Like someone who had learned early how to survive by becoming someone else. She's done this before, David said. Built new lives. Changed names. Burned bridges. Disappeared when it suited her. I couldn't look away from the folder in my lap. My mind was racing with memories. The things Margaret had said. The stories that didn't quite add up. The evasiveness. The charm that always felt a little too polished. She hadn't just cut me out of Elliot's life. She'd studied me. Learned how to. She'd watched how close Elliot and I were, and slowly, subtly, she'd unraveled it. Used a child that wasn't ours to bind him to her. And then started the long, quiet process of pushing me out until I was no longer a threat. Until I was just gone. And now I was awake. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless anymore. She made one mistake. She underestimated me. For days, I replayed everything, every birthday missed, every excuse Meadow gave, every time Elliot looked at me like I was a burden instead of the mother who raised him. Every moment clicked into place like jagged pieces of a puzzle I hadn't realized was even missing parts. I hadn't just been pushed out of their lives. I'd been erased. But not anymore. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I didn't fall apart. Instead, I started planning. If Meadow had spent years dismantling my place in this family with subtle cuts and passive silences, I was going to build my way back in with clarity, truth, and fire. But not recklessly. If I'd learned anything over the last week, it was that revenge wasn't about rage. It was about restraint. Patience. Timing. Calculated precision. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Elliot. It was about Emma. And yes, it was even about Tommy, a child who was as innocent in all this as I had been blind. I opened the folder David had left behind and read everything twice. I created my own file, a binder with labeled tabs, DNA results, marriage records, aliases, photographs, financial history. I researched. I made calls. I quietly reached out to old family friends, people Meadow had nudged away years ago. And to my surprise, some of them still cared. Still remembered Elliot before he became a ghost in Meadow's perfectly filtered world. Within days, I had a clearer picture of the woman who had infiltrated our lives. Margaret Winters. She'd reinvented herself every few years, always leaving when the mask began to slip. 2 ex-husbands. 2 settlements. No consistent employment history. Several moves across state lines. Small claims filed in her name under different addresses. No social media accounts in her real name. She was a ghost in her own story. And she was about to become exposed in ours. They came home from the cruise 3 days later. Meadow posted a photo the moment they walked in the door. Her and Elliot on the porch, arms around each other, smiling like everything was perfect. The caption read, "Home sweet home." So grateful for the memories we made. #family first, #blessed. It made me nauseous. She walked into that house carrying secrets in her arms like souvenirs. But I knew something she didn't. Her time was up. I waited one day before reaching out. I sent Elliot a message. "Dinner at my place? Just us. Need to talk. Please come." He replied within an hour. "Sure, Mom. Tomorrow night, okay? Just me?" "Just you," I replied. "We need to talk, and I want you to hear it from me." When he arrived, I saw it immediately. The tiredness behind his smile. The faint crease between his brows. The way he looked at me careful, like he didn't want to be caught in between. I greeted him with a hug. He felt smaller than I remembered. Dinner was quiet. I made his favorite roast chicken, lemon potatoes, and the chocolate cake I'd baked for the birthday no one came to. He noticed. "This is what you made for your party, isn't it?" "Yes," I said softly. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "I'm sorry, Mom." "I know." He looked down. "Meadow said you understood. That you were okay with it. The trip, I mean. She said you told her it was fine." That lie, so simple, nearly stole my breath. "I didn't even know you were gone until I saw the photos, Elliot." His face changed. "She said." He stopped. Confused. I leaned forward. "She's been lying to you. And I can prove it." And I did. I showed him the photos. The records. The marriages. The names. I gave him the DNA results. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, "You're saying, Tommy isn't mine." I nodded slowly. His hands trembled. "But I was there when he was born. I named him." I know," I whispered. "You've been his father in every way that matters." That's what makes this so cruel. He stood up suddenly, pushing away from the table like he couldn't breathe. "Why would she do this to me?" "Because you're kind, Elliot. Because you're loyal. Because she knew you'd never ask." "I feel like a fool," he said, tears in his voice. "Like I've been living in someone else's life." "You haven't," I said, walking to him. "You've been living in hers. But now you know. And now we take it back." He looked at me lost. "What do I do?" I put my hand gently on his shoulder. "You protect your children. You find the truth. And then, Elliot, you let her fall on the lies she built." That was the beginning. Of the undoing. Of the reckoning. Over the next few weeks, things began to change. Quietly at first. Elliot stopped telling Meadow everything. He started asking her questions. He started noticing how often she deflected, how quickly she lied. Then he found the burner phone. He didn't tell her. He brought it to me. It was filled with messages to a man named Ryan, dating back over a year. Flirtation. Weekend trips. Photos. Secrets. One betrayal had masked another. Elliot had been raising someone else's child, funding Meadow's lifestyle, and now it appeared she'd already lined up her next escape. "She's going to leave me," he said one night, staring blankly at the phone. "As soon as she finds a way to take the kids." "No," I said, steady now. "She's not. Not this time." Because we were ready. The lawyer I'd hired quietly, discreetly, had drawn up the documents. Emergency custody filings. Evidence packages. A timeline of deception and fraud. And when Meadow came home one Friday to find Elliot sitting on the porch, holding that manila envelope with David's DNA results and the photos of her lover, she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't even look surprised. She just sighed and said, "So you finally figured it out." As if it had all been inevitable. It wasn't rage that undid her. It was indifference. She packed 2 suitcases and walked out that night. And Elliot didn't follow. "Tommy knows now," gently, lovingly told. "That families are made of more than DNA. That love is not a lie, even if some people use it like one." He still calls me grandma. He still hugs me tighter now. Emma is thriving. Elliot is healing. And David? He visits sometimes. Just to be near his son. Just to sit with me in the garden and talk about how strange life is, how 2 people who were erased from their own families found each other and made their way back in. And me? I'm still here. Not erased. Not gone. Just quiet now. Waiting. Because some storms don't destroy everything. Some wash away what was false so the truth can finally take root. And grow. "The truth," I said. I opened the manila folder and pulled out the DNA report first, clinical, cold, and undeniable. I didn't push it across the table yet. I just held it in my hands. Meadow stiffened, eyes locked on the paper like she already knew what it said. "Before I go further," I said, voice calm but firm, "I want to remind you both that I love you. I love these children. That hasn't changed and won't change, no matter what comes next." Elliot frowned. "You're scaring me, Mom." You should be scared, Meadow snapped, trying to laugh, but failing. Loretta, what is this about? Some ancestry test? Did you sign up for one of those kits and suddenly think you're solving mysteries? Her deflection was smooth. Her voice sweetened at the end like honey poured over broken glass. I didn't respond. I looked at Elliot instead. This isn't about a hobby. This is about Tommy. About who he really is. Silence. Elliot blinked. What are you talking about? I placed the DNA report on the table and pushed it toward him. This is the result of a paternity test. Tommy isn't your biological son. The words hung there, heavy, impossible. Meadow didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't reach for Elliot's hand again. She just stared at the papers like she was calculating the odds of salvaging this conversation. What? Elliot whispered. No, that can't be right. Meadow finally spoke. This is insane. You had our son tested? That's a violation, Loretta. I turned on her. Don't you dare pretend to be the victim right now. I didn't have Tommy tested. David did. Meadow's face froze. Pale. Blinking. Caught. Elliot looked between us. Who's David? David Chin, I said. The man Meadow was living with before she met you. The man she left without a word when she was 2 months pregnant. Tommy's biological father. Elliot looked like someone had just struck him across the face. That's not possible. Look at the dates, I said. Look at the photos. Look at the man you've raised as your son and see him, his eyes, his smile, that scar on his chin. Elliot, he's not yours by blood. But you've loved him. You've raised him. That's what matters now. But Meadow, she lied to you. About everything. Meadow stood. I will not sit here and be attacked in front of my husband. You already attacked him, I said coldly. You built a family with him on a lie. You chose a man to raise your child without giving him the truth, and then you spent years isolating him from everyone who might question it. Elliot finally spoke. His voice was hollow. Is it true? Meadow turned to him. Elliot, please. Tommy is your son. You've been there since the beginning. That's what matters. That's not an answer. I needed someone who could give my child a future, she said quietly now, the performance finally starting to crack. And you, Elliot, you were good. You loved me. You gave us stability. David couldn't. He was chaotic and unreliable, and I panicked. I made a choice. And then you lied, I said. Not once. Every day for 7 years. And when you realized I might start asking questions, you made sure to erase me. Because I remembered things. I kept track. And you knew it. Elliot looked stunned, betrayed. Did you ever love me? Meadow didn't answer. Which was answer enough. That night ended in quiet devastation. Meadow took the children home early. Elliot sat at my table for hours, staring at his hands, reading the DNA report over and over, trying to process a life that had been rewritten in one evening. He didn't cry. Not then. But I did when he left. I cried for the son who had been tricked. For the boy I'd raised who'd grown into a man and had his heart shattered. And I cried for the children, especially Tommy, who would one day learn that the life he knew had been built on deception. The fallout. Meadow didn't leave right away. She stayed. Tried to pretend nothing had changed. Elliot went to work like a ghost, moving through the house like a man drowning slowly in his own memories. He didn't sleep in their bed anymore. He didn't call her by her name. 3 weeks later, he filed for divorce. He cited fraud, misrepresentation, and emotional manipulation. The custody battle started almost immediately. That's when Meadow stopped pretending. The counterattack. She fought back the only way she knew how, dirty. She claimed I had turned Elliot against her. She tried to discredit David. She told lies in court filings, tried to paint herself as a loving mother and victim of abuse, financial control, emotional neglect. But the truth was stronger. We had records. David had timelines, texts, surveillance. I had witnesses, friends Meadow had pushed away, teachers who noticed how I disappeared from school events, neighbors who remembered me always being there in the early years, then suddenly vanishing. She lost primary custody. Not just because of the lies, but because the judge could feel something wasn't right. A lifetime of deception can't be hidden in court. She was granted visitation, but under supervision. Aftermath. Tommy and Emma live with Elliot now. He's quieter, but slowly healing. He and David have started navigating a new relationship, not rivals, not enemies, but men forever bound by the same little boy. And me? I'm in their lives again. Tommy still calls me Grandma. Emma smiles more. We bake together. We have Sunday dinners again. The birthday party I didn't have? I'm planning another one. For Emma this time. With balloons and cake and a guest list Meadow can't touch. Epilogue. The final twist. 6 months later, Meadow left town. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't fight for more custody. Just vanished like she'd done before. But not before one last trick. She left a letter. For Elliot. In it, she confessed. Not to guilt. Not to sorrow. But to strategy. She never loved anyone, she wrote. She did what she had to do to survive. And she ended with this. You can hate me. That's fine. But one day, you'll realize I gave you more than you ever had before me. I gave you a family. And I gave them a future. That should count for something. He burned the letter. But I kept a copy. Not because I wanted to remember her. But because it reminds me what I overcame. That I was erased, but not defeated. That I was forgotten, but not gone. And that when the storm came, I didn't break. I rebuilt. I opened the folder and pulled out the first page, the DNA test results. There was a moment of silence so heavy it seemed to press down on the room. What is this? Meadow asked, her voice flat, too calm. I looked at Elliot, not her. This is a paternity test. Tommy's. Elliot blinked. Why would you do that? I didn't, I said quietly. David Chin did. The name hit Meadow like a slap. Her eyes widened, and for the first time all evening, her perfect composure cracked. Not much, just a flicker. But I saw it. Who? Elliot asked. Meadow stood up suddenly, her chair scraping hard against the floor. We're leaving. No, you're not, I said firmly, rising to meet her. Sit down, Meadow. You've spent years controlling every room you've walked into. This one? This one is mine. She stared at me, jaw tight, calculating. But she sat. I turned back to Elliot. My son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved without condition, looked lost. Confused. Betrayed. Elliot, I need you to listen to me. David Chin came to my door last week. He wasn't angry. He wasn't demanding. He was broken. And he showed me this. I passed the DNA results across the table. Elliot took the paper with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the numbers, the percentages. I watched the truth crash into him in real time. 99.7%. Probability of paternity? His voice cracked. Tommy's not your biological son, I said gently. He's David Chen's. Elliot turned slowly toward Meadow. Is this true? Meadow didn't answer. Not right away. Her silence said more than 1,000 denials ever could. How long have you known? He asked, barely audible. Meadow's lips parted. It doesn't matter. You're his father. Don't, Elliot said sharply, backing away from the table. Don't twist this. There's more, I continued, even though it felt like I was slicing open wounds. Her real name isn't Meadow Martinez. It's Margaret Winters. She's been married before. Twice. Both men left devastated. Both cut off from family and friends. And both, like you, thought they'd found the love of their lives. Meadow laughed, a short, brittle sound. So this is what this is? Some sick revenge plan because you felt left out of a birthday party. You didn't leave me out, I said, my voice steady. You erased me. From birthdays. From holidays. From photos. From my grandchildren's lives. And you did it so slowly, so deliberately, I didn't even realize it was happening. But the worst part? You used my son, my beautiful, trusting son, as a pawn. And I let you. Elliot stared at Meadow like he'd never seen her before. Was any of it real? She didn't answer. She couldn't. I loved you, he said. I gave you everything. I believed in you. I needed a father for Tommy, she whispered, finally. You were perfect. Elliot staggered backward like she'd struck him. You married me for convenience? I married you because it worked. Because we made it work. No, I said coldly. You made it look like it worked. And when anyone got too close to the truth, you cut them out. One by one. Meadows stood again. You think you're saving him, Loretta? You think you're the hero in this story? No, I said. I think I'm the reckoning. I reached into the folder and pulled out the rest of the documents, the marriage certificates, the background checks, the investigators' photos. Elliot deserves to know who he married. And Tommy deserves to know who his father is. The real one. You made this about control. I'm making it about truth. Meadows' mask slipped completely now. You think you'll win? That he'll just walk away from me because of this. He might not walk, I said. But I promise you he will see you. And once he does, you can never unbecome what you've been hiding. The silence stretched long between us. Elliot didn't move, didn't speak. His eyes were fixed on the evidence, his jaw locked in a war between heartbreak and rage. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, I want you to leave, Meadow. She froze. Elliot, take the kids and go. I need time. She stepped toward him, but he backed away. Please. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. His voice was calm now. Too calm. And you didn't just hurt me. You hurt my mother. My children. You lied to all of us. I can explain. No, I said. You've explained enough. And when the time comes, we'll let the courts decide the rest. Meadows' eyes blazed with fury. But she didn't fight. She turned, her heels echoing like the end of a spell breaking, and disappeared into the hallway. Elliot didn't speak again until we heard the front door close. Then he sank into the chair like a man twice his age. She took everything from me, he whispered. Not everything, I said, wrapping my arms around him. Not me. Not Tommy. And not the truth. He broke then. Quietly. A grief that had waited years to escape. And I held my son, not as the peacekeeper I once was, but as the storm Meadow never saw coming.